the purpose of Embrace Growth is to have you find your own inner resources, tap into your own inner wisdom. Each of us has a part of us that I like to call the witness. The witness is watching, the witness is learning, the witness is observing, the witness is always there. Some people call it the inner guide, the inner advisor. This part of ourselves has been recognized throughout history by various philosophies and religions and schools of thought. The idea that we have a part of us that is very wise, that has been around a long time, and that has access to what I will call all knowledge, and is able to communicate with our conscious mind through various ways. Some of the ways that our inner guide communicates with our conscious mind, with our conscious awakened mind, is through dreams, dreams that you remember. Sometimes you don't remember, but the message got delivered and you find yourself spontaneously behaving in new and different ways and viewing the world in different ways because of a dream that you may or may not remember consciously. So through dreams is one of the ways that the inner guide speaks with us. Also through feelings and emotions. Some of those times when you feel certain feelings and emotions and then you step over it, you like ignore it or behave as if you didn't feel that way, or pretend that you don't know something, then you are ignoring the voice of the inner guide. The inner guide speaks in a very soft, subtle tone, and sometimes it sounds like a voice, like an inner voice. Yeah, I know some of you are saying, yeah, that guy, he probably hears voices. Yeah, I do, and I listen to them, and it's a voice that I recognize that has guided me throughout my lifetime. And so I'm speaking to you of the inner guide because, you know, you need to learn to differentiate, to tell the difference between that part of you that is wise and that knows the answers. It'll always be calm and it'll always be centered and it won't ask questions. It'll simply know the answer. And the other voices in your head that are the sort of crazy, neurotic voices that maybe you've inherited from your parents or the other people in school or movies. You know, sometimes I find myself saying stuff and I go, wow, that sounded just like my dad. You know why? Because it was my dad. It was stuff that my father said to me when I was growing up, and then I find myself saying it to myself as if it were my own inner voice. And some of them are not very empowering. Some of them are disempowering. Some of them are less than encouraging. And so, you know, your inner voice, the inner guide is never going to be the one that says, you're so stupid, or you're such a dummy, or you're too weak, or you're too whatever, right? In other words, the inner voice will never, the inner guide will never be those voices that disempower you. The inner guide will always be a voice that encourages you, that is steady, that is very loving. It may be strong, it may be firm, because it is standing for something that is greater than your conscious mind can sometimes comprehend. So I know that's a funny subject for a lot of people to talk about, but the inner voice or the inner guide is really what I want to have you sort of begin to tune into and listen to during this show and in the rest of your life, because it'll never guide you wrong, for one thing. It'll never guide you wrong. And sometimes you meet somebody and you have a feeling, or you have what we call mixed feelings. Sometimes you have like a certain attraction, but you'll also have this voice inside that goes, watch out for this, or careful about that. That's the moments in which you need to distinguish for yourself, and only you can do this. I can't do that for you unless I have an interaction with you on the phone. I'll be able to help you. But sometimes you need to distinguish between, like I said, those voices that are from your parents or from your schoolmates or your other people in your family who may be critical and disempowering, and your own inner voice. And the best clue I can give you is I've already given you. It will never disempower you. It will always encourage you, and it will often warn you of things. And so when I say it, some people imagine the inner voice or the inner guide. You need to look for yourself as a wise old man or woman, or it may be a spirit animal or bird or something like that. But look in your own life, in your own dreams and in your own visions and in your own sitting with yourself and contemplating. And if you don't sit with yourself and contemplate ever, then I recommend that you take up that as a daily practice, that you spend some time, that you actually set aside some time, even if it means you need to go to bed early and get up earlier, or do it before you go to sleep, or whenever you find. But you need to find some time each and every day to be alone and to contemplate, really to meditate and to consider, and sometimes just to listen to the silence. And it is in those moments that that you can call forth that part of you that is wise and that is infinite and that is eternal and that is connected with all of it, and that has always been there. I say it was there before you came here as a conscious, aware, alert being. It was there in the child that was born, in the infant. And I assert that it will be there after this body is gone, after this personality has passed on and become energy again. This awareness moves on. And so, without getting into esoteric practices and esoteric discussions, I want to bring that back down to your own relationships, your relationships in your life. How is it that you have ignored or listened to your inner guide or your inner voice in your relationships and in your life? How many of you have gone out with that guy or that gal that you somehow knew internally this wasn't going to work out, this wasn't right, but you listened to some other part of your body or some other part of your spirit. Maybe you listened to your chemistry. Maybe you listened to your mental. Well, I don't know, he's a doctor and he's got this and he's got that and he lives in this. I'm going to marry him. Even though something inside you knew it wasn't a fit. Or vice versa, sometimes guys marry women that they kind of feel like it's not going to work out, but she's beautiful and they have this overwhelming feeling of desire. And so I talked about that in the last show. I talked about how sometimes when you're overwhelmed with that emotional and chemical feeling that feels like love, that feeling that makes your head spin, perhaps the worst thing you could do is go get married at that point, okay? Because what I can tell you about that, and what surely you already know by now, those feelings come and those feelings go. Just like the tide, just like waves coming in from the ocean. Sometimes really big waves come in and knock you over and wash you out to sea. But you know what? There's a time when the ocean's calm, and there's a time when that goes away. And so those feelings of overwhelming passion, I think you should pursue them, you should enjoy them, you should ride them, you should completely take advantage of and allow yourself to be altered and changed by those feelings of passion. However, I don't think it's a sound basis for a marriage, because a marriage is a business deal. A marriage